I'd like to take a break from making cult videos to bring you a very special announcement. And that is, not everything is a cult. I feel if I didn't make this video, I would just be feeding paranoia and distrust, but excessive distrust, not the healthy kind of distrust, because you probably should distrust a little bit. The catch is that cults come in many forms. They can be religious, they can be political, they can be self-help, they could be business, they could be even health and fitness. Cults come in every form, but that doesn't mean that every group out there is a cult. Some groups are just that. They're just friend groups. They're just yoga classes. They're just study groups. And that's okay. We actually need to be in groups. So we should find a healthy one. In this video, I'm going to explain pretty clearly what is not a cult and what's the difference between a cult and a healthy group or a healthier group. If you watched the Killer Priest podcast on Wednesday, then I might be repeating myself a little bit, but it was very long and most of you didn't watch it. I just have to clear a few things up because in my Rate My Cult, there's always someone in the comment section that's like, the US is a cult. Cult is short for culture. It's like, no, it's not. It's a similar etymology, but it doesn't mean it's the same thing. Both of them come from the Latin cultus, which means tended. You know, it's the past participle of colere, to tend, but it's not the same thing. Like, okay, what words come from the same thing? Flower and flower, they come from the same word. They're not the same word though. They're not interchangeable even. There's custom and costume. Once again, not interchangeable. Same root. I could just go on listing words that come from the same root and are not the same word and cannot be used the same. Anyway, Oxford defines culture as the customs, the social institutions, and the achievements of a particular nation or people or social group. Now, I think that's a pretty solid definition. So it's what you wear, it's what you eat, it's what you drink, it's the movies you watch, the language, etc. So we're talking about the shared customs of millions of people, usually millions. Of course, there are smaller cultures as well, but it's how people conduct themselves. So this is usually an ethnic group, like a tribe, or in the case of America, it's a nation of many different ethnic groups. And we kind of have this monoculture, which we've discussed before. So cult is a high control group. Their leader exerts control, lots of control over the members' lives. And he or she, it's usually a he actually, they exert control through other followers as well. And the key factor of a cult versus another group is the amount of control they have over their followers. Followers, they're not allowed to dissent. Ideology is not open for debate. It's their way or the highway. And often people aren't even allowed the highway. Like, I would actually like the highway. No highway for you. And someone in the comment section said the United States of America is a cult. Like, no, it isn't. There are plenty of cults in the United States. But the United States, like France, like the UK, it's a country. And a country is a nation with a government that occupies whatever landmass we're talking about. We need to live in countries. We actually do, because as much as the laws hamper us, they also protect us. A person without a country is open to all manners of violence and abuse. Hannah Arendt actually spoke about this, and she explained what happens to people who don't have a country. Short answer, it's the Holocaust. Now, this video is not about the Holocaust, but that's why you need a country. Also, have you ever heard that theory that slave capturing in Africa became more difficult as the continent went from just general land to nations? I mean, it's a theory, but it makes sense. People hate their country. I see this. People hate their country, and they think that without their country, they'd be living like kings on spaceships. Like, no, girl, you would be tied up in Samuel L. Jackson's backyard, okay? The country is the thing that usually has the army and the police that protect you from violence, from theft, from kidnapping. A cult will use violence, theft, and kidnapping against you. The cult doesn't have laws like that. It's the whims of the leader. So maybe you can make the case that an ideological dictatorship is actually a cult. So we're talking like Mao's China, Stalin's USSR, or Hitler's Germany. But we're not in a cult in the United States just because the government only pays for half of your college. Like, I don't even know where to start with that. If you're watching this in the future, the United States government used to pay for some of our college. I'm so sorry you were born too late. I'm really sorry. Anyway, people get confused because persuasion and propaganda, that is used by governments and by corporations and by just about anyone who can afford a PR team. Like, I don't consider propaganda to be very ethical, obviously, if you've been watching this channel, but it's not the same as high pressure techniques that cults use. Like, for real, Cults will use violence. They will beat you. They will use physical persuasion to get compliance from members. So that could be beatings. It might be sleep deprivation or loud noises or hyperventilation or drugs. The compliance they demand isn't in the best interest of the follower either. It's in the best interest of the leader. It's always in the best interest of the leader. So when a democratic country uses persuasion to get compliance, it's so that you follow the law. And look, I don't agree with all of the laws. I'm just going to put that out there. But most of the laws are so that we don't hurt others or take advantage of others. Of course, there are laws that make absolutely no sense. And I hope that we and future generations actually make the efforts to change these laws. Like, for example, some marijuana laws or assisted suicide laws in certain states. That is not the same as convincing someone to sleep with the leader or cut off contact with their families. These are not the same things. Imagine if the Secret Service arrested women in the streets and submitted them to really high levels of brainwashing to get them to sleep with the president. And if they didn't do this, they would face prison time or tax penalties, something like that. That is just so ludicrous that it doesn't even need to be said. So comparing the United States of America to a cult is a little ridiculous. And most people know that this is obvious. I know that 90% of you watching are like, duh, if I don't like the state I'm in, I can leave. And yet I get a barrage of comments whenever I do a Rate My Cult that call everything a cult to cover for the fact that they are in a cult. So they can't deny that they're in a cult. So they do the next best thing, which is to deny that a cult even exists. Very good. Very sneaky. Very good brainwashing there. But yes, group dynamics can be incredibly toxic and hierarchies can be unfair. They are. But that doesn't mean that every group is a cult just because most groups descend into this. Cults, they lie to you. They don't tell you what happens if you stay in the program for years. They say, okay, you're going to reach enlightenment or you're going to get all these riches or you're going to get your perfect spouse or whatever it is that they promise you. They don't tell you that you're going to have to cut off contact with your family or that they're going to pick your spouse for you or that you're going to spend all your money on this organization. It's a bait and switch. If you're ever in a group that pulls this with you, just leave. Leave faster than you left your friend's knife sales pitch, okay? Leave faster than you left that party when the gun came out. You just leave immediately. That bait and switch thing, that is not cool. Now, here's actually a chart. That's something really interesting. Here's a chart by Margaret Thaler Singer, and it's about the Marine Corps and why that is not a cult. This is the book I'm reading from. And so I'm just going to point out a few things. I'm actually going to put it on the screen so you can pause this video and take a look and get the complete picture. She used this in court to testify against cults. So a Marine recruit knows the organization that he is joining and he knows or she knows what to expect from them and what is expected of him. The Marine retains freedom of religion, politics, friends, family association, etc. The Marine serves a certain time of enlistment and then leaves freely. The Marine can re-enlist if she desires or he desires. That medical and dental are available and encouraged. This is not true for cults all the time. The Marine Corps keeps public records that are available and you can check in on them. It doesn't keep things hidden. You can choose what school your child goes to and they're expected to go to school. They don't try to limit your religion or anything like that. Marine Corps is not a sovereign entity above the law. The Marine gets their pay, obviously, and it just goes on and on. So you can pause the screen and actually read that. But the Marines are not a cult. The United States is not a cult. The Marines are the most United States of the United States, and they are not a cult. You see, even the Marines, which uses physical coercion to get people to change their personality, is different from a cult. If you haven't seen Full Metal Jacket, it's definitely worth the watch. Anyway, I understand that people do feel powerless in their life, and they may compare themselves to cult members who are also powerless. Maybe life inside of cults is little worse than life on the outside, they think. So in that case, it's really important for that person to know which group is making them feel powerless. Maybe it is their controlling family or the limited options that they face, often due to class. They might feel stuck in a small town. The town is full of gossips. This happens in small town. Or their high school was full of bullies and they feel trapped. And they just, for some reason, can't understand the many systems that are working on their life or how to maneuver their way out of them. This is kind of important, and it's actually really common. So for example, if a person grew up in a poor home with a controlling father and she lives in a small town where everybody is up in her business all the time, she might feel as controlled as if she is living in a cult. So in this case, what are the systems that are working on her? We've got her family, we've got her town, we may have her class because, being broke just limits your freedom. So, okay, let's figure out an escape plan for her. 2 of those things can be changed by moving to another town and just getting a job at a Walmart or whatever. But you know what? Being broke sucks. It's going to suck in any town, but you can put some distance between those toxic friend groups or relationships like your family and your high school bullies, if you need to. I'm not saying that you need to, but some people actually do have toxic relatives. I'm not saying that you cut off all of your relatives because I'm actually very much against that. But if you are in this situation where these things are controlling you, then sometimes you have to. Or, and this is my favorite option, she could just move a few blocks down and just cuss everybody out and be like, you're not going to control me anymore, and just make everybody's life difficult for the rest of her life. It's very confrontational, but you know what? I support that. Now, if her father is town mayor and all of these people believe in his leadership and he has promised them that they can reach utopia if they just listen to him and follow his rules, now that's a cult. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of people who need therapy and hobbies. Oh, by the way, you are going to run into a bunch of people in this life that need therapy and hobbies, but that doesn't make it a cult. The sad part is that a functioning society can still suck a lot. It can make you feel used and unseen at the same time. Seems like a contradiction, used and unseen, but yeah, a lot of people feel both used and unseen. And unfortunately, that is just part of life. And those people are too controlling, and they need to be told that very, very clearly. Definitely check out my video on Ms. Salt. Ms. Salt was a salty bitch. It's about this old woman that was able to control the whole town just with her words. The federal government doesn't see you like that. The government only sees you when taxes are due. You are unseen May through March. But when they need your tax money, oh, then they see you and they don't want to hear any excuses. You see the difference here? But back to this girl in the small town, which is just a fiction anyway. A person with low-grade depression like that is actually more susceptible to fall for a cult pitch because they may be looking for a loving group or an ideology which actually supports them, and they might be more susceptible to love bombing. Whereas somebody who belongs to a very loving and supporting group that is constantly checking in on them, they might not be as susceptible. Also, a very cynical person who's like, you want to sell me a utopia? There's no such thing as utopia. Run along. So a very street smart person, they might also be less susceptible. But that depression can really harm people in that way, more so than we really think about. It makes them more susceptible to these pitches. Now look, I know I have painted a portrait of a woman who is trapped, but my point is that she does have options. If you are in this situation, you can always reach out to a mentor. Honestly, now you can put that information in an AI and you might get some good ideas. You can try emailing me. People have done that and I hope it's worked out for them. I've always tried to give them my best advice. But she can leave. Now, of course, you can leave a cult too, but it's often more difficult. A lot of the times they're not allowed email, they're not allowed phone calls, they're not allowed escapes like this. And oftentimes they don't know because they're too brainwashed to even look for it. So no, the United States is not a cult. A culture is not a cult, at least not our culture right now. A cult is a high control group and it doesn't let you voice your opinion, it doesn't let you wear your own clothes or choose your own partner or friends. It's usually based around a central figure that thinks that he or she knows all of the secrets of the universe. It lures you in through love bombing and doesn't tell you exactly what you're getting into. It turns you against your family and your friends and bleeds you dry of your resources, whether that be your time, your money, or your work. It's obvious that the United States simply doesn't bother enough with you to do any of that. It wants you to pay your taxes, okay? And it expects you to use your blinker, but that's about it. And most of you don't use your blinker anyway, so what are we even talking about here? Also, most regular friend groups, they simply don't want to control you to that extent because it is a lot of effort. Okay, someone called my channel a cult, and I get 0 points for cult leader because what do I want with you? We hang out Friday mornings at 9 and we just sort of talk smack in the comment section, in the live chat comment section. And that's about it. And I talk smack with my Patreon. I'm not out here to micromanage anybody like that, especially a group. That is so much effort. If a group tries to micromanage you like that, goodbye, just goodbye. It's very simple. Okay, so now that we have settled what is not a cult, we have definitively said what is not a cult. I will be back next week with more stories about cults. I've got one that you are really gonna like.